John Stremlau is an Honorary Professor of International Relations at Wits University. Professor Stremlau, good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. So we hear politicians going ahead with an impeachment process with what I can see as no formal evidence. I mean, is this all about politics, or is there really any evidence to investigate?
It's all about politics, Stephen, and it's important for democracies like this one and there to recognize that no man is above the law. But in the 235 years history of the U.S., only one really serious impeachment procedure went forward in Andrew Johnson's case after the Civil War, and he was acquitted by a very narrow vote. But until Bill Clinton and now Donald Trump and now Joe Biden, there was no politicization of the impeachment process. We have a procedure here to remove presidents by constitutional means, and I think that's very important to have, but it should not be exercised recklessly or just for short-term political gains, as in this case.
So what happens now? I mean, would there be public testimony against Biden? Could this actually be about that public testimony, try and change the political needle in some way?
Well, they may well try, but the vote in the House was very close and very partisan, 212 to 221, with the Republicans managing to proceed with this inquiry. The Speaker of the House, who's very conservative and wants to make America great again in the Donald Trump ethnic national mode, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, the House Speaker, had a piece in the USA Today, an opinion piece. Evidence against Biden was the headline, can't be ignored. Well, we have no evidence, Stephen, and we're pursuing an impeachment inquiry, which the leaders of the House who are carrying this forward have said it's really procedural right now. It's not that we need evidence, but we need to get the subpoena powers to get evidence so we know is there, but we haven't seen it yet. And therefore, we are proceeding with an impeachment inquiry so that we can be serious about that. And Hunter Biden, the son, who has done some pretty dodgy business practices and has been indicted by the Justice Department of the Biden administration, by the way, he swears that he will not respond to a subpoena to testify before the House unless it's an open session so that everyone can make their judgments on what he's saying, not in a closed session where leaks are a political hazard. So, I don't know what to make of all this, but I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think the Senate will try him. I don't think that anything like the impeachment against Trump for the January 6th insurrection or the previous effort to strong-arm Zelensky in Ukraine to come up with some dirt on Hunter Biden that could implicate the candidate then, now President Joe Biden, is in the works, frankly.
Could it all backfire on the Republicans? I mean, the United States is facing, again, like our society, serious problems, serious economic problems. Here we are going to have a group of people who sort of, it would seem, the argument against them would be they're just indulging in politics. Could it backfire?
Well, it could, but bear in mind that there's a very serious issue here, which has parallels in the South African context, and that is the national identity of the United States. Mike Johnson says that he's not a Democrat. He's a Republican in the sense of being supportive of republic. A republic is, in the U.S. sense, is a states' rights-based constitution that privileges the now GOP-dominated rural small states that are overrepresented in the U.S. Senate, which controls a lot of the court appointments and other things going forward, like constitutional reform of the Electoral College, which gives them the presidency. Donald Trump almost won the presidency, even though he lost 7 million votes, but he almost won it in the Electoral College with 200,000 votes. South Africans don't have that kind of flawed system, but they also have the advantage of the dominant ethnic minority, racial minority, was a minority. In the U.S., it was a majority, and it's now becoming a minority, and they are reacting culturally to the Make America Great call of Donald Trump for a white-dominated Christian and I think rural. I don't think he's going to win in 2024, but he's showing signs of being very strong in swing states and could win in the Electoral College.
So at the same time, Donald Trump, as we know, faces several criminal cases. And one of them now, quite a strange move, the sort of prosecutor, I think they call him special counsel, has now gone to the U.S. Supreme Court to deal with procedural issues on this, quite important procedural issues about whether he can actually be tried as a former president and whether he can be tried for things he committed while in office. This puts the Supreme Court in a complicated spot. 3 of its members were appointed by Trump. Its legitimacy, if you look at the polling, has fallen through the floor. I mean, again, the resonances with our society and former presidents and court cases, all the rest are very much there. How important is that case?
It's very important, and Jack Smith has been trying to be a responsible prosecutor, and the Justice Department has performed under Merrick Garland, I think, from an objective standpoint, very responsibly in bringing indictment against Hunter Biden and also pursuing these indictments, 91 of them, against Donald Trump. Some of them are state level and some of them are federal. But nevertheless, you do have a situation where Trump really wants to become president so he can pardon himself and stay out of jail. And you know, I don't think that many Trump supporters see it in those terms because they see him as making America great again in their image, in their cultural image, in their cultural values. But it is a struggle for the heart and soul of America that makes this 2024 election an inflection point, as Biden has described it. And in similar ways, I think we are going through an identity crisis here for the 2024 election, as you have reported very responsibly, and in the confluence of the democracy forces that are at work in this country, but that are under in danger because of demagoguery.
In the meantime, I mean, we can be talking about American politics, but this has a huge impact in other places. So we see, for example, the conversations around what's happening in Gaza, the way that Israel's behaving there. It obviously is trying to, it will say, get the hostages that Hamas has taken. Also, it has an impact on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. I presume all of what's happening in Washington spills over almost everywhere.
Well, of course. And what is so striking to me is that I always felt that it was arrogant of the Clinton administration to talk about the unipolar moment. Well, it was a moment. But in fact, with Trump having been elected once, how can any government, a serious government like the South African government, take the American reliability and predictability for granted? Now, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are autocrats, and they are certainly, until they get deposed or die in office, they're fairly reliable and predictable. But democracies are not, and it behooves us to all to work and try to inform ourselves so that we can vote intelligently when the time comes. And I'm not being partisan here. I'm just telling it like it is.
Professor John Stremlau, thank you, and Honorary Professor of International Relations at Wits University. Really appreciate the time.